Good evening. Welcome to the Juvenile Welfare Board's final public hearing for the consideration and adoption of the FY26 millage rate and budget. The public hearing is being held in accordance with Chapter 200 of Florida statutes. I will ask Robbie Stivers to proceed with the proposed FY26 final millage rate portion of his presentation.
Thank you, Judge Moore, members of the committee or the board. Good evening. This is a narrative of the final adoption of the millage rate, and then the second part of the agenda is for the final budget approval. And this gives a good narrative of the information that we've covered. I've got a PowerPoint presentation that highlights the narrative. So here's where we are at the final. Today is September the 22nd. This is a final trim hearing. As you can see, it's a long process to get here. This is the millage rate history, and you all have seen this before. But over a decade, the millage rate was at 0.8981. In 2023, it went at a rate of, decreased to a rate of 0.8508, a reduction of 5.3%. In 24, it dropped again to 0.8250. That's the second time in 35 years that the millage rate has been reduced for 2 consecutive years. In FY25, the FY24 millage rate was maintained at 0.8250. And here is just what's paid to JWB based on the average single-family resident. As you can see in FY25, it's estimated to be about $209. This is the ad valorem revenue and fund balance. This is, the blue is the FY26. This is the ad valorem taxes of roughly $111 million. 32 million of that, in addition to 32 million of that is for restricted revenues required by board policy. And then the 6.6 is the unassigned revenues that we are projecting to have. And this would be the go-to if there were ever unforeseens or budget scenarios. And as you can see, as we continue to spend down the fund balance, this will continue to decline as it has in the most immediate prior years. This is the lapse history. And you've seen this as well over time. And as you can see, after COVID and stuff, lapse really creeped up on us. There's been a concerted effort by the board to spend it down, and we continue to do that. We had projected to have a goal of roughly 13%, and we've gotten it down this year to about 8.8, and next year is projected to be around 9.4. We'll see if that holds true. Again, that's a moving target that we track throughout the year. FY26 final millage rate, property valuation of roughly $141 billion, that's for the county. Our increased portion of that is 4.05. The proposed millage rate, as you know, is a 0.8250. It requires a majority vote. And the majority vote based on our size budget is 6 votes. Equal to the millage rate, the board approved FY24 and FY25 the same millage rate, and we're proposing the same for FY26. 4.19% greater than the rollback of 0.7918. And if you did the math on that, if the 0.49 is about $4.5 million difference between that and the rollback rate. And then lastly there on the millage rate of 0.825 yields ad valorem revenues of roughly $111 million if approved. Yes, ma'am.
Is that with 100% collected, or is that with your 4%?
At the 105, it is net of, it's the 96%. It's not the 100%, the 105. Yes, I mean 111, I'm sorry. It's late in the evening. The 111.5 is a $3.1 million increase, and that is the 96% collection rate. Any questions on that? Thank you for that. The increased tax revenue is 3.1%, $3.1 million, and it will be used primarily to fund the following. $2.6 million for the RFA, that's one-time capital monies. Almost $2 million of that will be for cost of living adjustments for current programs funded by JWB, and that can be in a sundry of things, including salaries, their operating expenses, and other costs that are incurred by their contract with JWB. JWB's portion of the COLA goes predominantly to salary adjustments, and it's $210,000. It's not included in that 1.9. 1.6 for the expansion and enhancement of continuing programs. $487,000 for new and expanded programs, and that's to complete the strategic plan that we're in the final year of. And then finally, the FY26 budget includes, in addition to the 3.1 in additional revenues, $3.8 million in program reductions that this board approved a few months ago. So that's the uses predominantly of the increases in revenue. There have been no changes since the first trim hearing that we did a couple of weeks ago. Any questions or public comment?
We're at the public comment question as well. Do we have any public comments and/or questions? Any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Mr. Owens.
Madam Chair, just out of curiosity, and this is probably more for Mr. McCurrack, but do we know of any budget amendments that are pending that would be under the 75,000?
No.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Does any member of the board recommend any changes to the final millage rate at this time? No, I'm here.
Okay.
The board must now consider the resolution to set the final millage rate. I will ask Ms. McCurrack to read the proposed resolution regarding the FY26 final millage rate.
Now, can I borrow your?
Yes. We're sharing papers.
Yes. I just in case anyone wondered, the page I have is, so it's a little difficult to read. Okay. A resolution of the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, adopting the final levying of the ad valorem tax for Pinellas County for the fiscal year 2026, providing for an effective date. Whereas the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, on September 22nd, 2025, adopted a fiscal year final millage rate following the public hearing as required by Florida Statute 200.065. Whereas the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, held a public hearing as required by Florida Statute 200.065, and whereas the gross taxable value for operating purposes not exempt from taxation within the Pinellas County has been certified by the county property appraiser to the Juvenile Welfare Board as $140,742,873,554. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, that FY operating millage rate is 0.8250 mils, which is greater than the rollback rate of 0.7918 mils by 4.19%. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption.
Do I have a motion and a second to adopt the FY millage rate? Do I have a second?
Second.
I will now ask Julia Bergen to call on each board member for their vote.
The Honorable Judge Patrice Moore, Chair.
Yes.
Okay, Division Chief Jim Milliken is not present. The Honorable Bruce Bartlett.
Yes.
The Honorable Mr. Brian Ongst Jr.,
Yes.
Miss Renee Chia,
Yes.
Miss Kristen Nage,
Yes.
Superintendent Mr. Kevin Hendrick.
Yes.
The Honorable Chris Lotvala is not present. Miss Elisha McShay.
Yes.
The Honorable Sarah Malo is not present, and Miss Melissa Rutland.
Yes.
Great.
I will ask Robbie Stivers to proceed with the proposed FY26 final budget portion of his presentation.
Thank you, Judge Moore. So now that we have the millage rate approved, now the next step is approve the final budget for the Juvenile Welfare Board based on a millage rate of .08250. The ad valorem revenue is the $111 million, roughly $500,000, and that's calculated at the 96% rate that we talked about. The interest income that we're projecting this year is roughly $2.6 million. And then there's other contributions that we'll have over the year that makes up total sources of revenue of $114 million. Final budget program expenditures for FY26. Program continuation of about almost $112 million. Those are existing agencies that we have contracts out with. Program COLAs, and these are for the programs, almost $2 million. JWB has about $210 million in COLAs. Program reductions that we spoke about and the board have previously approved is roughly $3.8 million. The request for applications for capital and technology is being budgeted at almost $2.6 million. And new and expanded programs, roughly $487,000 for total expenses of $113 million. $112 million of that goes to the programs, Children and Family Services. And as you can see, the top three or so that are there, sorry, it's very small type, but out of school funds, out of school time program, behavioral health, parenting and education, and family support are the top three there. It's in your packet if you have an interest in looking at that. It's a good breakdown of expenditures, I think. FY26 final budget, administrative expenditures, FY26 proposed budget. Full-time equivalents, we've got about 83 and a half. That's a reduction of 2.5 employees. There was a part-time employee. That's how you get a half of an FTE. Salaries and benefits, $9.5 million, calculated at 97.5%. The reason we do that is we know that there is attrition, there's retirements, there's things like that. It takes a while to hire those folks. So to avoid incurring more lapse, we budget that down to some degree. And then operations, almost $2.4 million for total administrative costs of almost $12 million, and that's 7.62% of the administrative rate. If you add the 14 employees in there that will report differently going forward, it's roughly 8.89. FY26 final budget, non-administrative expenditures, statutory fees, those are the collection fees largely paid to Pinellas County to collect the ad valorem taxes, $2.4 million. Internal technology, that's our licenses, et cetera, for all the softwares and technologies that we use. It's down from last year, mainly due to the fact that we've landed some big softwares already, and now it levels out as we go through to more of a service than an acquisition of it. And then performance management, this is a tool that we use in order to measure outcomes internally and externally. So non-administrative expenditures, roughly $3.4 million. Changes in fund balance. Beginning fund balance that we are going to roll over is about $42 million. About $33 million of that are required fund balances. Non-spendable, this is about $10,000 that's been in contributions that we've got, and we have to spend them for other restricted purposes. The assigned, these are the two that you hear a lot about that's required by board policy. They're required to keep on hand for cash flow reserve and for unforeseen expenses. And we don't budget for unassigned. So that's something we track throughout the year. The ending fund balance is projected to be roughly $28 million for, if you'll notice, we had a decrease in fund balance of about almost $22 million in FY25. Again, in FY '26, we'll probably have about 14 million of that. That's a variance of more than almost $7.5 million. That fund balance continues to decline. We'll keep an eye on that for sure. Questions on that?
We are at the public comment portion. Do we have any public comments at this time? Okay. And so does any board member have any questions for Mr. Stivers at this time? Any recommendations for changes to the millage rate at this time? None being heard, I will now ask Mr. McCurrack to read the final resolution.
A resolution of the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, adopting the final budget for fiscal year 2026, providing for an effective date. Whereas the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, on September 22nd, 2025, held a public hearing as required by Florida Statute 200.065, and whereas the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, set forth an appropriation and revenue estimates for the budget for the fiscal year of 2026 in the amount of $156,202,603. Now therefore be it resolved by the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County that the fiscal year 2026 final budget adopted. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
Do I have a motion to adopt the FY '26 final budget resolution?
I move that we adopt the final budget for fiscal year '26.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I will now ask Julia Bergen to call on each board member for their vote.
The Honorable Patrice Moore,
Yes.
the Honorable Bruce Bartlett,
Yes.
Mr. Brian Onks Jr.,
Yes.
Miss Renee Chia,
Yes.
Miss Kristen Nage,
Yes.
Mr. Kevin Hendrick,
Yes.
Miss Alicia McShay,
Yes.
and Miss Melissa Rutland.
Yes.
With that, unless the board members have any further comments, this concludes the final public hearing for the FY '26 millage rate, and we are adjourned.